Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining us. Hope you all are having a good time at the MAC this year. We are beyond thrilled to meet you all and discuss what we have been working on and what we are working on to make migration in Exchange Online space more efficient and focused on the end user experience. So we continue our quest to delight you all with the experiences and services we provide. Again, it's a privilege to talk to you all, and thank you for giving us your time during the session. So let's get to this. So okay, so we are Exchange Online Migration. So we are the team that's responsible for everything related to migration or onboarding onto Exchange Online, be it from on-premises or IMAP servers or from Google Workspace solutions. And we are not only focused on onboarding, we are focused on other things internal as well, like the stuff we don't see, load balancing at all. But we were not talking about any of that. This session is purely focused on onboarding. And in this session, we talk about the recent changes that we have made in the onboarding space. And why we're talking about it? Because we are responsible and accountable for all the onboarding and offboarding services to and from Exchange Online. We build and maintain the experience in Exchange Admin Center related to migrations and the underlying services that it is powered by. And if you are a seasoned veteran or a power user of commandlets that helps with migration, we build those too. So, we have packed the session with information on all three fronts and more. So who are we? We are from the, Exchange Migration team, as I said. Leading us here is Brad, who is our principal escalation engineer. He's joining us from continental USA. And Brad is a Microsoft veteran, and I believe there are very, very few things that Brad might not have seen in his schedule related to migration. So thanks for joining us, Brad. You will all hear from Brad later in the session. And the patient, who is so kind enough to join us from China, way past midnight her time. She's our engineer. And patient is focused on Exchange migration experience. And if you see the experience in EAC and in future in MAC related to migrating the emails, who to thank. That's patient. So she's well versed in everything EAC migration experience and even beyond. And thank you for joining patient. And Ryan is a lead engineer, and Ryan is based out of continental USA as well. And Ryan leads most things in our team from an engineering perspective for onboarding. And Ryan does many other things too, but here Ryan is as our onboarding expert. And I, probably the least important person in the panel, I'm the product manager for mailbox migration and onboarding, and I'm also based out of Continental USA. So thanks everybody for joining, and let's get right into it. The agenda, right? So for some reason, I think my slide migration is not working. So we'll get through this. So we'll talk about modern EAC for migration. We'll talk about a large mailbox migration, and we'll also talk about command list, as I said earlier. So let's get into EAC. So as most of you know, we are deprecating the classic version of Exchange Admin Center EAC, and we have been working on building a new version of modern EAC, which we call modern EAC, and it's streamlined and focused and made more accessible, and it's heavily customized experience for migration to Exchange Online. And this team is accountable and responsible for everything related to migration in that space. So why, if anybody was thinking, why are we returning classic EAC and modern EAC? I'm not going to read through the slide. The crux here is that, we needed more technical efficiency in terms of deploying features. and we want specialized focus on migration rather than EAC being a generic catch-all admin center. And we have decided, we have figured that we need separate focus on enterprises and as well as very small business and SMBs. So we are focusing more on enterprises in EAC experience. And we also wanted to consolidate the experiences or get the experiences near between M365 Admin Center, which some of you might know as MAC, MAC, and EAC. So now, if you're situating between either of those systems in doing your day-to-day admin responsibilities, you will see a similar experience. And our North Star is we want to have all migration as someday, which we're planning for in the works in Mac. So with that, I'm going to the next slide. Some reason my transitions are not working, but we'll figure that out later. Here, this is what you have seen as classic EAC, right? So you can see that in the classic EAC, there is a migration space, migration tab, and you would have also seen, hey, if you want to see the status for all batches, you could have seen it there. And then you will see that, there is a link to new Exchange Admin Center here that you might have been seeing. We also talk about the same thing up here. And we also give a nudge to, hey, if you want to know about everything related to new experience, it's right here. You may find it more there. So that's how we go about this one. So I'm not going to spend much time here. Let's look at what modern EAC offers. So here, as you can see that there are two new features that you have seen. You can see that we are talking about data consistency score. And we're also talking about percentage sync. These are two new values that you will see from the landing page that tells you how your batches are proceeding. And you can also search for, provided you know the batch name, you can also search for specific details or specific batches by searching here. And let me move forward. That's how this goes. And anybody have any idea why my transitions are not working? I'm just clicking through the forward button, but we'll see how this goes. So classic EAC, option to check status for all batches, as you already saw, right? Hey, there's a, you can look at all the batches as you can see here. And then, but in modern EAC, you have search bars at the top. And you also have the data consistency score and the percentage synced, those two new features that you will see in modern EAC. And when you go back, you can see that, hey, there's an option to edit migration endpoints from the landing page in classic EAC. So how do we do that in modern EAC? We have a new endpoint manager page coming for you here. So, that's something you're working on, and that's coming soon. Everything else that we talked about EAC so far, it's already available. So going on to the next one. Let me see how we get through this. I just have to, for some reason, I just have to get back this. So, okay. So this is the, modern EAC page, right? You see at the top here, this is from our, lower environments, not production yet, but we want to give you a peek view into what's coming. So we'll have the endpoints manager page here. You will have, that's where when you click on that, you will get a page like this saying, hey, all the endpoints related to this particular org, you can see here. I want to add new one, or I want to select a particular one. You will see here. You click on the add new. There you go, and then you click through it. You can give the details of the endpoint. You get past it, and then you will see the new ones added. So that's how the new endpoint manager page will work, and this is coming later in the year. So with this, at least from a landing page perspective, from an endpoint administration perspective, what we have, is a marked improvement over what we have in Classic, and this is focused on, Exchange Online migration, as you will see in the next slides. So bear with me, I'll go through this. Okay, high traffic migration methods to Exchange Online, right? What happens here? So as you all know, there are many ways to migrate to Exchange Online and many places to migrate from Exchange Online, right? So what happens here is we support migration from Google Workspace, and this is different from the generic IMAP migration. This is customized. If you are not already using this customized method when you migrate from Google, we strongly recommend use this because it has a lot of cool features that you're missing out on if you are using the IMAP way of migrating from Google. So what's next? We have the ability to migrate from an IMAP source. We'll talk about it. And you all know how that usually happens, right? If you're an IMAP service provider and you want to migrate from here, we have been, providing that capability for years. And migration from on-premise exchanges, Exchange server. We also, very fondly call it remote move. And we talk about cross-tenant migration. When you have a large organization that usually goes through mergers and acquisitions or have multiple subsidiaries, you're familiar with what I'm talking about. If not, we'll talk about it more. So if you want to migrate across tenants and still maintain the mobility of the solution as a whole, this is what you do. And we are not discussing about offboarding today because, time. So moving forward, okay, I need to go. So automated migration from Google. As I said earlier, we totally recommend this method over using the IMAP method when you migrate from Google. Why? Because this is heavily improved over the IMAP migration method. Don't take my word for it. Look through the documents here, right? You can see that the customized automation, and we have customized automation for it. If you click on the link, it will take you to the support documentation, and it has improved security because we're doing auth security here over not entering your email and passwords in a CSV file in the IMAP way. Then we have reduced bloat. Those who are familiar with Google migrations know that Google have labels, Exchange Online have folders. So email to label in Google is 1:many, but when you migrate, that might end up resulting in multiple copies. That will end up resulting in multiple copies on Exchange Online unless we take specific actions. So we are using a specific data model in this automated migration from Google, where we are removing some default system labels from Google when we migrate on, like all emails, and we focus heavily on the custom on the main system labels like inbox, sends, drafts, etc., and also the custom labels. So you will see significant reduction in bloat without taking heavy manual actions just by using this particular method. And okay, we don't only migrate emails. We migrate calendar, contacts, rules, and filters along with emails. So you have the ability to opt in and out of all of it. You have the ability to opt in and out of certain folders, migrating certain folders. So that's why we totally recommend this. Let's hope my slide transition works on the next one. If not, I'll have just go through that. So bear with me. There you go. So let's do a side-by-side comparison, right? Of how the experience differs from classic ESE and modern ESE as far as Google Workspace migration is concerned. So in classic, as you can see, we go here, from the landing page, you click on the plus sign, which takes you to create a migration batch. And then you select, I want to do Google Workspace migration. Okay, 1 second, my system is doing something. Let it give it a second. And back here. Okay, I'm back. So you click further, and then it asks you to input the CSV file details, and then you name the migration endpoint, and then once you find out it, then you select it, you go forward, and then you have the ability to select the target delivery domain and give a custom name for the batch. So target delivery domain, some of you who have been using the feature might know that there are some bugs around it in the recent past. We have fixed that. So there were updates about it in tech community as well. So, and you can see that in Classic, you only have the ability to include Gmail filters, but in Modern, you have much more. And Classic, you have specific ability to select folders as well as time range. In Modern, you have we have parity for that too. So then we schedule the batch in Classic, and then we move, and then let's talk about Modern, right? The look and feel is different. And you can see that there is there's a significant single page application view here where you get a guided migration experience from the EAC. I'm just opening this on the slide just so that I can see this better. Okay, so and then, as you can see here, right, you select the what kind of migration that you want to do, and then for further on, once you select the type of migration we have to do, you are going to be advised on the prerequisites. So this is a very important step, which we see as our on-call engineers day in and day out that, hey, my Google migration failed. But when we troubleshoot, we see that, hey, the old prerequisite steps were not completed. So we strongly recommend you take the sweet time to go through this when you do the migration and set it up the right way so that once you're over that step, everything goes smoothly. And it will if the prerequisites are taken care of properly. And from then on, we we select the endpoint, or we have the ability to create a new endpoint as we go. This is a significant improvement in comparison to Classic, where you would have to break the batch progress and then go back and create a new endpoint. So we have the runtime ability to create an endpoint here. Going further, you add the user mailboxes that you want to migrate. In a CSV, you get the list of all the mailboxes you have to migrate. And then these additional I talked about, you have the ability to migrate everything, mail, calendar, contacts, rules, and or select ones. And the parity feature in terms of migrating selected folders or selected time range, as you can see here. Or what is important here, right? The one thing I want to call out is, you might see that, we migrate rules too. So rules migration from Google to EXO, we are still in our process of perfecting that. And there are some hiccups that we have been facing. So when we migrate, those rules will be migrated, but into Outlook filters, Outlook rules, and we will turn it off by default. So we strongly recommend that you go in, check the rules, make sure it's good before you turn it on. We are in our quest to make that even better. So continuing from there, you schedule the batch and you move on. So let me get back to the first one here. Okay, so IMAP migration. So far we talked about Google migration. Now we have IMAP, and we'll quickly walk through remote move and cross tenant. So you can do IMAP migration. You can do IMAP migration to migrate Google emails as well. But again, sounding like a broken record. We strongly recommend you do the customized GWS, Google Workspace migration for everything related to Google migrations. Even though you can do it in IMAP, you will miss out on a lot of features if you use this way for Google. It's good for others. So Classic, all right? I'm just calling out here that, hey, here is how you create a migration endpoint. And this is how you can create one. This is because you don't have to worry about later in the workflow in Classic. But we have taken care of this in Modern, as we will see in the next slides. You select that, hey, I have to migrate to my Exchange Online. Then you select I have to do IMAP migration. Then you move forward, and then you enter the details to specify the mailboxes that you want to migrate, and further going down, you select the migration endpoints from the list of the migration endpoints already created. As you can see here, there is no ability to create a new endpoint here, which modern ESD has. So, and when you go further down, you'll see the IMAP server to which you'll be connecting, and the encryption protocols and the ports, and then you name the batch, and then you select folders and time range, and then you go ahead and schedule it. When it comes to modern ESC, again, better experience, add migration batch, then it takes you through a guided experience. And if you have any questions, keep asking in the chat, right? This is very, intuitive as, when you go into modern ESC. So I'll glance through this as we go. And then you create the batch name, you create what you want to do, onboarding or offboarding, and then you create the migration type. In this case, of course, it's IMAP. And then you select it, you move forward. Again, we nudge you, hey, have you taken care of the prerequisites? So that's how you see this one, and you go forward, and then you select the migration endpoint. Remember, you can again create a new endpoint here, so you're not necessarily lost in your ability to stop the, to continue here versus in classic, but you have to break the flow and go back and create new ones. And then this is a list. We are also telling you, hey, these are the list of mailboxes that you want to migrate, right? This is how you can create the CSV. So we give you a list of sample files with data and without data, sample data. You enter that CSV file, you upload that into this application, and you select the configuration settings, and then you move forward to scheduling the batch. So that's IMAP migration. It works good, but if you're migrating Google, use the automated GWS migration, Google Workspace migration. Now, let's talk about remote move. Remote move is our suite name for everything migration from on-premise Exchange servers to Exchange Online. So those are familiar with the remote move. You know that there are mainly three kinds, right? There is hybrid, there is staged, and there is cutover, which is also called express migration. So what's hybrid for those of us who are relatively newer to this? Hybrid is that kind of remote move migration where the organization have to maintain both on-premises and online mailboxes, and you're gradually moving mailboxes from one to another. And in this case, we're talking about onboard to EXO. So if you're gradually over months or years moving from on-premises to Exchange Online, hybrid is the way to go. And I'm sharing the links to all of this documentation later in the slide. But if you have any questions, keep asking in the chat. Staged. Stage is when you know that, hey, I need to move from on-premises into Exchange Online, but I have more than 2,000 mailboxes. So staged is when you move it in phase by phases. So you have some customers in on-premises, some customers in Exchange Online, but at the end, everybody will be in Exchange Online. However, you know that at some point, everybody will be in there. So that's why you call staged. Whereas in hybrid, we always expect some to be in on-premises no matter what. So cutover is when you know that cutover is very similar to staged, with the exception that we can do it in one stretch. So if you have less than 2,000 mailboxes, you can use cutover migration. And of course, we have our veteran PST import export, but you miss out a lot of features. So we recommend, if you're moving remote move migration, aka migrating from on-premises to Exchange Online, use these available solutions. So I'm moving from here fast. I'm watching time, so I have to get past this. So this is experience. Classic has all the features of authentication of both source and target. And then, in modern, you have all the prerequisites as we talked about. We select migration endpoints on both sides. We select the list of emails and we move forward. Schedule batch migration, move forward. Cross-tenant is the next one. Bear with me here. In Classic, we did not have the feature. But here in modern ESC, we have the UI feature to do cross-tenant migrations. So for the uninitiated, right? Cross-tenant migration is when you have multiple subsidiaries, or you have going on mergers and acquisition, but you want the the email service to be shared. That's when you do cross-tenant migration. So I'm just, this is how the cross migration will look like, very similar to what we already talked about. And then here's what we talked about. Hey, if your migration is not going as planned, these are the main artifacts at your disposal to help you troubleshoot those. So you know that there is the primary broadcast of our documentation called Microsoft Docs. If you don't already know this, click on it and bookmark it. This is how it looks like. It gives very detailed documentation. It has details about Microsoft Tech Community. They don't. Tech Community is when people usually ask us questions. Hey, this is not working. Then we go and answer that. So if you have questions, you should definitely ask it because we have teams, looking at those. And we also obviously have TeamBlog. Bookmark this because when we have main, broadcast coming out or main announcements coming out, we usually put it up here. So this is a good way to know about it early enough. So that's what we do about troubleshooting. So next is a very important topic that's close to all of our hearts, large mailbox onboarding. So those of us who are new to this would know that, large mailbox is traditionally a tough nut to crack as far as migrating into Exchange Online. Large means if your mailbox from the source side is greater than 100 gig, you would have likely ended up creating escalation ticket when we migrate to Exchange Online. And now, so far, we didn't have an automated way to solve for that. We are thinking about how to make it easier and how to make it, more automated and less manual intensive. So let's look at it, right? In the current state of the solutions that we have for large mailbox onboarding, what we recommend is, hey, make sure you are only migrating what you need so that you don't hit the mailbox size limit. But again, that's likely migration of data. And then you also ask for optional quota and say, can you bump my quota for my specific license a little bit more? There's a limit to which we can bump the quota because, store limits, every shard that hosts a mailbox has store limits. And there are ways in which you can provision the archives manually, and then you move export it using PST and then import it into the archives. You know what happens there? You're breaking the custody of emails, so it's not necessarily entirely super compliant as per your own organization requirement. Depends upon your organization requirement, right? So it looks like this, right? So if you are just asking for a quota bump, you say, hey, I'm at 100 gig, I'm more than 100 gig. I can bump it a little bit more. And the request comes to us, who is in the tier 3 section of support, our on-call engineers, and then we bump the quota for you. But we have a limit. Brad will talk about more later later in the session. And then we have source to EXO. This is more helpful. It goes more beyond just quota bump, but you have a primary mailbox. Then you manually provision archive and then auxiliary archives. I'm spreading this from the perspective of on-premises to Exchange Online, but for Gmail and IMAP, that's a different story altogether. We'll talk about it later. So then you have to manually provision auxiliary archives, and then every auxiliary archive shard will take 30 days to populate. So it's a very slow process and manually intensive, right? So this is what you follow if you don't selectively migrate. You manually increase the size on the side, and then you migrate. So we know this is not good enough, right? You deserve better. So we have this new thing called future state. In future state, we have two options. One, make the quota bump easier. Brad will talk about it in the coming slides. And then we are automating it. Ryan has been focused on building the solution at a high level. This is not detailed design, but at high level, we request the customer to sign up for auxiliary archive, and then we give you the features to understand your source mailboxes, and then create output files from an analysis process, and then feed it back to the commandlets or the UI in the future, and we will automatically populate and provision all of this. So that's our future. So it's all click through. You might want to, it's not manually invasive at all. As first step of it, we're coming out with the commandlets. In future, we'll be doing UIs. So what next? So as I said, in the future, we're looking at two, quota modification and automation. So let's go to the quota modification part. What is different from what we have today? And I will pass the mic over to Brad to walk us through it. This is Brad's baby.
Sure. Yeah. So today, what happens is if you need a quota increase for onboarding a mailbox that's say just too big to go into the service, then you have to open a support ticket, and support ends up having to file an engineering escalation, which can take days and weeks and can be a bit inconsistent. So what we're doing is we are standardizing the process to create some automation initially for support, but then hopefully later to extend it to customers, to be able to customize their quotas and for a large mailbox onboarding. So initially we're targeting Google migrations and hybrid because we know both of those are big sources, and both of them in our current situation don't have a really good answer without some sort of engineering intervention. So we will have a requirement that you have auto expanding archive enabled and appropriate licenses to have an auto expanding archive. And what will happen in the future, go ahead to the next bullet there, Tony, is we're going to give you about 240 gigs of flexible quota to play with per mailbox. So if we're talking about the primary mailbox being one, the archive mailbox being a different mailbox. So the thing to keep in mind, the recoverable items quota is shared between the two. So if we add extra to recoverable items quota beyond a certain amount, we've only got 240 gigs to work with. So we actually have to subtract from primary and archive quota. So there's some examples here in the next bullet, I believe. Yep. And that you could, for instance, have, all of your quota allocated in primary and archive, let's say, and shrink your recoverable items quota if that's the shape of your on-prem mailbox you're bringing on. And the reverse of that is also true if you've got very small primary and archives but huge recoverable items. As long as it falls within this size limit, we should be able to accommodate it. So, and then we're going to do this in a uniform way. So 60 days after, we can revert quotas to default, to get everything back like it is. And Justin, I think we just answered your question. It is 60 days. Now, if for some reason the archiving isn't splitting fast enough, and we basically the mailbox is not back in a shape that if we're not going to restore the original quotas and break your mailbox, that's not what we're out to do here. We're going to check that. That'll be part of the checks before we revert the quotas back to the default. But the idea is that you get these quotas are not permanent. You'll get the mailbox into the service. You'll let the archiving system and the splitting system provision new aux archives, create data, and have the policies to move them over. And then once these things are back to the sizes they're supposed to be, their quotas will be reverted to default. So this is just a convenience to get the mailboxes into the service faster. And we can take some questions at the end too, if you've got more on that. But turn it back over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Brad. So moving on, I'm watching time. I'll wrap this up in 5 minutes because we want to answer your questions. So our current focus, as Brad and insinuated and I mentioned earlier, we are focusing on GWS and IMAP because they need more love at this point because they have less features. Future, we'll be focusing from a large mailbox onboarding perspective on onboarding from on-premise servers and offboarding a large mailbox from EXO to on-premise as well. Dan Phelps, I see a question. We'll get to that soon. Brad, if you can mark Dan's question. Thank you. So what are we doing, when we say we are automating it? So we support Google and IMAP for now. We'll get into on-premises later on. Migrate items. We are giving the ability to automate the migration of items not only into the primary mailbox, but also external and archive mailboxes. So with this service, you are able to automate the migration of sizes greater than 100 gig without manual intervention. This is 100% touch-free. No, you will have to enable auto-expanding archives. But once you do that, and when you follow this process, you will get through easily in an automated fashion. So how the first step here is we do that iteratively, right? We want to learn from what we're doing, and we are creating a commandlet. We aren't creating a commandlet, we are modifying existing commandlet, which gives us two functionalities. One, the ability to understand the source mailboxes that you want to analyze. You may have 3,000 or 10,000 mailboxes, but you know that as an admin, some of them are high. So you will input those details, pass it into the commandlet. The commandlet gives you output in terms of a CSV, which tells you the details about what the potential bloat would be and what are the hard-hitting labels in case of Gmail, and what you can do about it. And it also gives you an XML output which recommends, hey, this can go into Exchange archives or auxiliary archives. So that's what we're doing here. And the XML output, which is the feed to the next step in this commandlet-based migration, as well as UI when it's all automated. This can be modified because you don't like some of the recommendation. It's cool. It's your system. You do what you want, and you can modify the XML and then feed into the next step, or you can create it from scratch manually. So that's our design approach. So what are the two things coming, right? So this is the command that we're modifying. It'll have new parameters, analyze, and XML data. And analyze will give you information about the makeup of the mailboxes you wanted to analyze, and XML data is the step where when you have this parameter, you input the XML, which was the output of the analyzed job. You input that here, and then the XML guides the system behind the scenes to move what data to where. And this one, right? Get mailbox analyst request statistics is a new commandlet. This gets you the output of the new migration batch analyze command. And then once you have the output, you format it however you want it, and then you can pass it through new migration batch XML data. And then it's automated from there on. This is again commandlet. We want to put the UI out as soon as possible. So I'm going to skip through this. When I turn the preview on, you can go back and look at it. I'm watching time. So I already talked about most of this. If you have questions, feel free to ask. So I'm just turning on the private view at this point if you want to keep looking at it while I skip forward. So I talked about XML input. So in the XML input, this is how it looks like. It's essentially telling you, okay, this particular email address, this particular folder, we want it to go to primary, we want it to go to main or auxiliary. This is the output of the analyze parameter. And once you have this XML, you input that into the XML parameter in the new migration request, and then and the system picks up from there. So new features and recently modified commandlets. I will quickly go through this. Data consistency services. If you don't already know, DCS is the new fidelity solution. We are retiring bad item limit and large item limit later in this year. And DCS is a marked improvement over BL and LIL. I'll tell you why in the next slide. It helps you take all of the guesswork out and gives you more scientific data on the fidelity or the accuracy of your migration. We have added a couple parameters to the new migration batch commandlet. If you want to include specific folders, we can call that out now. If you want to migrate by certain date ranges, content filter will let you do that. If you want to selectively migrate language, that's also available in content filter language. And this is only available in cloud-based or in EXO. What we do here is, the value for this particular parameter is a supported culture code value from the Microsoft .NET framework culture info class. So if you click this link, you'll know more about it. And get migration user, you can get the details of a specific email address from a migration perspective, when you pass this parameter, this is new, and you want to know how your move request is going through in general, right? For that, we have a new parameter for get move request status called analysis. What this does is it gives you an informed insight on what's happening with your migration as a whole. Again, click through this. We are updating a documentation for it, but you can see how it generally works. Moving on, DCS. I'm watching time. Okay. DCS admin is no longer required to guess the number to use for BAL or LIL in advance with DCS because, this is more scientific. Here, we are examining data based on quantity as well as quality, right? Hey, what are the count of items that cannot be migrated and must be skipped by the mailbox application service? This all data equal? Not really. The user data is more important than metadata system data in many cases. So we evaluate both before we give you a score. And based on the score, the admin can choose, hey, migrate, I'm okay with to proceed, I'm not okay to proceed. And then the admin has the ability to deal in approvals, not necessarily worry about all the arbitrary limits, which was the case for BAL and LIL. How we do this? We look at bad items, large items, and missing items. Bad items as in corrupt data, properties, orphan permissions, etc. Large items as in, that for on-prem to external migration, if the limit is 150 megabytes per item. For IMAP, it's 35 megabytes. So if you have items migrating larger than that, it won't, it will fail. Those particular items, right? So we look into that when you calculate the score. And missing items. Oh, you were syncing. While you were syncing, you moved the data from one folder to another. You deleted it. So those missing items are also considered during migration while calculating the DCS data consistency score. And this is how we have the score coming out: perfect, good, investigate, and poor. Perfect, good. No worries. You can you can go and complete the batch. Investigate. Okay, there's some items you need to look at before you complete. We need approval from the admin to do it. We approve and then go forward. Poor. You have a migration batch. Let's say 100 users. 90 people have 90 mailbox. 90 mail users. 90 mailboxes had good score or perfect score. 10 had poor score. You can still go ahead and approve the batch, but those mail users won't go forward, and you will work with Microsoft support assistants to complete the migration. And that is what we have for DCS. And that's the end of the presentation. And I'm running through here because we need to hear from you. And while we do that, this is a selfish ask from my end, our end. What would you like to hear more about in the upcoming migration specific discussions? We have many venues through which we reach out to you. This is not a feedback conversation as a whole. If you take the QR code or click through the link, you will see that the question more about what would you like to hear more? What is something that you would like to us to focus more on? So tell us what as our dear customers you want us to do. That's what this is for. The feedback on the presentation is later on. That's it. Q&A. Over to Brad.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I think we did have a question earlier and some feedback, I think, regarding some of the takebacks between modern EAC and the classic EAC. Specifically, I think offboarding was a big concern. Do we have an ETA or any sort of comments that we can give to offboarding appearing in the modern EAC?
I know the answer, but I'll let Patient speak to it because she's the one who did all the work there. Patient, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I think I have answered in the chat. We already have offboarding in modern EC recently, so just have a try in modern EC.
Excellent.
That helps. Yeah. Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that was the majority of it. There were some questions, I think, around some of the large mailbox onboarding. I think I answered them in the chat. And I think we're pretty caught up in the chat, honestly. So if anybody has any other questions, either type them in the chat, raise your hand, or come off mute and just ask the question, since we have a few minutes here.
Are you available to come off mute and ask questions?
They
Okay, there's a
should.
good.
Yeah.
Brad, I'll let you.
Okay, yeah,
manage the
so
question.
Rihanna asked, will any of the quota increases be rolled out to mailboxes being onboarded through third-party tools? No, that's not our plan at this time. Usually third-party tools can target an archive mailbox directly, and we would expect them to be able to. So if they can migrate content into the archive mailbox and then let the auto split happen, that would be the preferred mechanism for third-party migrations. Another question, why is there a time lag between the status of a move request and the status of a migration user? Who wants to take that one?
Ron, would you advise us there? Why is there quite a time lag between the status of a move request and the status of the migration user? Can you go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, the delay between a migration user and the move request is because we have two separate services behind. Recently, we are improving the we are reduce the delay between the two services. We introduce publish subscription model. So if there is any update in the request, we publish the updates to the migration user. So hopefully the delay will be reduced.
Right, that's a new feature that has now been rolling out, and we've had a few growing pains with it, but in general, it should be getting better. Those should be more in sync. There's always going to be a bit of a delay, but those should certainly be more in sync now, to answer your question. Looks like there's a ongoing discussion between Morella and Dan. So yes, you can create, Dan, big batches to start with, because the question was around needing to control the completion of either individual users or small batches of users together versus creating big batches, and they were using move requests primarily for that. So you can create big batches, thousands of users, let those sync, and then you can create small batches from the large batch, pull users out essentially, and then complete those small batches. So hopefully that meets your needs, and certainly please give us feedback if there's some missing functionality there.
Since Brenda's talking about feedback, the survey that I had shared earlier, we have long text forms to give specific questions there. We would love to hear from you. You know, we miss talking to you more often thanks to all the pandemic, but please give your inputs here. Over to you, Brad, sorry.
Yep. The next question from Kenneth is, does our team have scope over AZ copy and basically PST ingestion? Tony, I'll let you. This is about what our team owns, so I'll let you answer that one. How about that?
Short copy. How would you know this is going on?
This is the IP ingestion team that owns this. I'm not sure if there's any plans on working with them closer. Maybe you can speak to that.
Oh yes, we have plans to working with IP teams. Thanks for translating that, Brad. We have plans to work with IP teams. We are looking at options to do those moves through our service. You know, we in very early stages of discussing about it. So in future, maybe next time we see, we may have better updates, or next a monthly exchange mailbox chat where some of us participate, we'll have updates for you, but not right now.
And there is, sorry, there is a hand raised. Let me see who this is. It looks like Chris Ferroni has his hand raised. Would you like to come off mute, Chris?
Yep, and thank you, Brad. Actually, just two questions. Regarding the use of the large migration batches and then moving them into smaller batches for completion, is there any way or any improvement in that process? I've seen the documentation and it looks a little bit cumbersome. So is there any improvement in that area? The other question I had was, with the temporary quota increases for larger mailboxes, as that 60-day period is coming to an end, is there any notifications sent to the end user indicating that the mailbox size limit is going to be reduced within the next like X amount of days or anything of that nature?
Right. We don't have any notifications, but we do have, like I said, we're going to have some checks in the automation that is not going to revert their quota back down to where, say, they can't send email, or even they're going to be within, a gig of not being able to send email. That we're not going to do that. So that we don't have any plans for notification for the revert right now. I think you should just expect that, and if you do have to request an increase, that's something I think the admins will have to handle in terms of communication. That user, understand we had to submit a temporary request for you, and anytime after this date your quota is going to shrink back to the normal sizes, and then we'll just manage that on the back end as to when that actually shrinks. Regarding improvements for batch splitting, not right now. It's a pretty corner case scenario. It's very large businesses generally are working through that. It is PowerShell. It's not super difficult. You just basically create a new batch with the user IDs of the mailboxes you want from the old batch to appear in the new batch. But it is PowerShell, and that's the gist of it right now.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is a question from Tim Jackson, 1151.
Okay, let's see. So yes. Okay, so Tim, that shouldn't happen in a healthy environment. The question was about the 2 mailboxes being provisioned. If it does happen, we actually have good documentation on how to recover from it now. We have what's known as a remote restore. So if you disable the remote or the on-prem mailbox, let's say, if you always want to disable whichever one has the least content in it and then merge the content that way. But if you choose to keep the cloud mailbox, we do have a remote restore that can copy data from the on-prem if there's a delta, because sometimes you do end up with mail in both locations when that happens. And that we do have a document on performing a remote restore in that situation. But yeah, if that continues to happen, please open a case with support, because something might not be healthy in the synchronization for your environment. Pramod asked about the rate at which archive mailboxes expand. Pramod, there are still limits, right? It's only going to expand a certain amount per day. I don't know exactly what those are for third party because the archive team technically owns that, but we are there is a certain amount that will be moved per day, and it's not based on size exactly. It's more based on, I think, the time that service has to run to be able to copy data.
Scrolling through to see if you missed any questions. We go through all of it. Thank you for your kind questions and comments, team. Brad, Ron, patient, if we don't have anything else, let's give 5 minutes back to our dear customers. I'm sure they'll have a session at 12 BST as well.
Right.
Everybody, thank you very much. We can't wait to hear more from you. We will look towards the survey. Again, shameless plugin. This is not the feedback on the presentations. This is you telling us what you want us to do in terms of migration. So please take your time to give us this feedback. We want to hear from you. We can't wait to make life easier for you. We have all the right tools, but we want to make your admin experience even more better. So please trust us with your valuable time and advice there. And thank you very much. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all, patient Ryan. Thank you.